alarm! To arms! They are here!
Good evening and welcome to the Watchmen's Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight, as usual, we're joined by Jason Foreman, Robert Landon, and we have actually two very, very, very special guests for the show tonight. We have Heather Hill, who is candidate for governor of this great state of Ohio, running as I would just say conservative. We'll talk a little bit about some of the issues with the Republican establishment. We'll more on that later. Let's just say she's a good old conservative. And
Yes,
then
I
her
am.
running mate as lieutenant governor, Stu Moats. So Heather, Stu, welcome to the Watchmen's Report.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for Republican voters, conservative voters to realize that there actually is a choice coming up in this election for governor, a very important election, as we're finally going to be rid of that rhino Mike DeWine. And you had the Republican Party that kind of in an unprecedented action uh, endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy uh, many months ago, before the Republican primary, which is going to be coming up here in May. So that was not normal action, and I want to talk about that with you, Heather. Get your and Stu, get your guys' perspective on that. But there is an option. There is a choice out there. We have uh, this ticket, and we also have Casey Putsch and Kim Georgeton, and we interviewed Casey a couple of weeks ago. So we're very excited to have this pair on the show tonight, and let's learn a little bit more about them and about what their vision is for the Buckeye State. So, Heather, tell us a little bit. I know you're from Morgan County, which for the geographically challenged, that's in pretty much extreme southeastern Ohio. It's what, about 30 minutes away from Marietta in the Ohio
We're
River?
we're about 30 minutes from Zanesville and about 30 minutes from Marietta, so we're kind of right between the two. But yes,
Okay.
Appalachia, Ohio, southeastern Ohio area. I live in the middle of a 100-acre farm in a log cabin like Winnie the Pooh.
Hey, it sounds idyllic, you know.
Yeah.
The more I get around people, the more I want to get away from people usually. So having a little bit of space between you and your neighbors isn't a bad thing. Now, uh, Morgan County, again, folks, that's the third least populous county in the state of Ohio. It's also very conservative, very red county. It actually, in the
Absolutely.
most recent presidential election, I looked it up. I think it was about 76% for Donald Trump. And going all the way back to the Civil War and the creation of the Republican Party in the late 1850s, it's only gone Democrat twice for presidential elections. I mean, that's amazing to say that. And it was in 1912, it went for Woodrow Wilson. And in 1964, Morgan County voted for that scumbag, Lyndon Baines Johnson. But every other time they got it right and they voted red. So uh, that's a little bit more on Morgan County. Now,
Well,
Stu,
one thing, Cody, I don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of people ask me how I can be an African American female that is so red conservative. and you just explained it. I was born and raised in Morgan County, Ohio, and we take pride in being conservative. We take pride in holding our Christian conservative values and honoring those every day. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's my mom's side of the family was from Eastern Kentucky, so it's a different culture. I think the Appalachian culture. My dad's side's long time this part of the state of Ohio, but it is. Elaborate a little bit on that, like your early history growing up. Tell us a little bit more about Heather Hill.
Well, my father, well, actually, my stepfather, was a factory worker at a factory called Taylor Woodcraft in Moats, Ohio, and he was transferred to Morgan County. So when I was about 2 or 3 years old, I moved to Morgan County with my mother when she married him. So I've been here my whole life. You know, we are all just country kids. We were raised on country music. We were raised on garden hose water. You know, just we. My grandfather was a preacher. Um, we were always raised to 100% follow Christ and love Christ and do the best that we could to be Christian conservatives. We have always taken pride in being pro-life and being pro-gun and being pro-Christ. So, and also being pro-military. And that's one thing when you talk to Stu, when he gets the chance to introduce himself, pretty much our whole campaign is military in some way. I am a military mother. Stu is a retired military major, and we all we're very prideful when it comes to our country and being patriotic and being conservative. So that's just the way that I was raised. I'm just a little country girl. So I hope that explained it.
Well, it does to me. Like I said, it's a different culture. It's a different lifestyle, values. When you get, and that's a positive thing in my perspective because it is
Absolutely.
conservative and it's something that's centered around family and around uh, tradition. Uh, Heritage matters, history matters. Um, so I get it. I get it 100%. So now you said that was it your father was a pastor or your grandfather?
My grandfather on my mother's side was a pastor.
Now I know you're not supposed to talk about religion or anything like that, but I think it's relevant. I mean, we want to know a little bit about the values and that sort of thing when you're talking about who you're going to put at the top position in state government. So, were you raised Baptist, Pentecostal, what denomination, or were you non-denominational?
Well, I was raised. I went to a Church of Christ. That's a church that I grew up in, Pennsville Church of Christ. Um, one of our neighbors would take us kids. My parents were both very bad alcoholics, so they were not involved in the church. But our neighbor would take us to church quite often. Um, so we kind of skipped around to a lot of different churches, especially during vacation Bible school weeks. But my grandfather was in Pataskla, Ohio. He was a Baptist preacher at Philippi Baptist in Pataskla. Um, so, just we've always been very spiritual. But as far as belonging to an actual one denomination, that wasn't something that we did. And even when my husband and I, when we got married for our second date, my husband took me to church with him, and he went to a non-denominational church called Hands of Faith in Zanesville. Then as we established our relationship and moved back home, we started going to a Wesleyan church. And eventually, when our kids got older to where they actually needed a good youth group, we left that church and started going to Cornerstone in Duncan Falls. And that's where we have pretty much been for the rest of our marriage. So, and I know, religion does not belong in our campaign. We should not discuss our religion. I completely disagree, because I believe 100% that we are in a spiritual war right now. And it's very important for us Christians to come out and support other Christian leaders, because that's the only way, that is the only way that we are going to be victorious, is if we have leaders that are willing to stand up and say, I am a Christian, I serve Christ, and this is why this is important to me. So,
I agree. And um, just to let the folks out there know, some of the religious differences between the candidates for governor in this cycle. So Heather shared with you her background. We didn't get to that question with Casey when he was on the show. It just didn't come up, and I'm not even sure off the top of my head if I've seen it anywhere. So we'll try to find that out for you. Then obviously you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who is a fairly devout Hindu,
yes,
which is kind of a very foreign concept for most Americans as far as what the tenets of Hinduism uh, are. And then you have on the Democrat ticket, you have Amy Acton, who is actually Jewish.
that's
So
correct.
we kind of run the full gambit here with with religions on this ballot. Isn't that right, Heather?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's totally relevant, and that's the pardon me. That's the reason why I always try to ask questions of candidates about their early history, get to know them a little bit, and
Yeah,
and something like religion. Are they practicing? It's one thing, I don't even know. There's a lot of secular Jews, so they identify culturally and genetically even as Jewish, because it is, you can do a DNA test and test for Ashkenazi DNA, but they don't consider themselves practicing.
Right.
So they're kind of a secular Jew. I don't know if she's devout. I don't know if what brand, if she's Reformed Judaism, or I doubt she's Orthodox, just based on appearances, I guess. But these things all give a good insight into what values these candidates were raised with.
absolutely.
And as much as people want to say that it's separation of church and state and all that stuff, that's been kind of, pardon my word, but it's correct, bastardized uh, in modern America. The founders were, by and large, very clear in their beliefs, with a few exceptions. You're going to have that, but they were very, very religious people. They were very Christian people, and they also made it clear that democracy, or a republic, we're not a democracy. The republic requires the people to be virtuous, and they also viewed Christian teachings as being key to that virtue. So again, it's very relevant, and I appreciate you sharing that with the folks out there. So um,
Thank you
now,
very much.
yeah, and you got into, as I understand it, you've been an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. You went to Ohio State,
No,
and oh, you didn't go to Ohio State. Oh,
I
I
went.
read I read something incorrect then. Okay, go ahead and tell
I
us
went to
about.
Ohio University
Oh, okay.
in Athens.
There
Yes.
was an article. I got that legit, Heather. It was in a Zanesville paper, and I found the article, and it said that you went to Ohio State and majored in marketing and business. So that's not on them. That's not on me. Okay, so you
Now,
were you
now
were a
we'll let
bobcat then.
Stu. Yes, I'm definitely a Bobcat. Now, Stu's son went to Ohio State. Is that right, Stu?
Yes, he just graduated last month.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where the Ohio State may have came from. My husband, myself, and both of our kids went to Ohio University. So we put so many kids through Ohio University, we ended up just getting a little house there instead of having dorm rooms. But
I
but
love
I'll let
that.
Stu go ahead and introduce himself if that's okay. And
Yeah, Stu. Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
All right, hey guys. So I'm actually a Keystone State guy by birth, and so I grew up in Pennsylvania on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains on a dairy farm. Then enlisted in the Air Force 2 weeks out of high school. Did 5 years in Okinawa. Then I got my degree through University of Maryland. I commissioned. I finished out my career. I have an MBA from Naval Postgraduate School and retired. Met a pretty girl around Dayton, Ohio, and well, I've been there ever since. So after the military, well, actually right before I retired from the military, I started a tree service. And part of that is that when you grow up outdoors working with your hands, the cubicle will take a little bit of your soul every week that you're in the cubicle. So I had to get back outside. I love being around people. And then, so now we have a couple tree services. We have a horse stable. I always say my wife, she runs the rescue, and I run the tree service to pay for the rescue.
Nice. Go
So,
ahead.
no, Christian background as well. Very active in the church. Nazarene Church is where I go to in Dayton, Ohio. I'm a big part of a prison ministry there. I was the one that gave the message this past Sunday. So I preach every other Sunday in Dayton Correctional Institute. I called my mother the first time I went into preach at a prison ministry, and I told her, "Well, Mom, you were right. I would be in jail someday."
Well, I'm sure that's been a very fulfilling experience, and I imagine we could probably have an entire show just on that topic, being able to minister to the incarcerated individuals and some of the testimonies and things that you hear from them. I imagine would be quite a good topic of discussion.
Yeah. Well, some of that's like you're talking about second chance people, and you kind of see where I don't want to say the system, but society in general, and that's where some of our school reform initiatives that kind of goes to talking to people who are incarcerated, and that really formulated some, some fundamental, um, I'd say outside the box thinking, stuff that I would never thought about until years of talking to prisoners and seeing like, hey, why are you here? You're 22 years old. You should be starting your life, your career. Like what led you down this path? And a lot of it, even the gray heads, a lot of that started really in elementary school, to be honest. And then I've talked to a lot of teachers when we've been out on the campaign trail, getting petition signatures and whatnot. And a lot of teachers, they know they have good, I would say, fixes or enhancements to the curriculum, but it hits the ceiling at the superintendent level. So I think there's a lot of good teachers, because teachers, just like military people, they don't get into it to try to get rich. They get into it because they have a passion for it. So there's a lot of great teachers who are in the classroom that they see the issues and they have good ideas. But again, when you're trying to change a system, it's hard to change it at the top.
Indeed. Now, that brings up, I think, a good question here. With that experience, and then Heather, I'm sure you've been very well informed as far as your Stu's experiences with that, and then you have your own experiences with the education system. As I understand it, you have a history of fostering children. Has it brought any ideas as far as needed reforms within the state of Ohio when it comes to education, when it comes to intervening or offering any type of assistance or What are your thoughts on that as far as public education system, and how do we reach these kids that kind of have bad home lives, bad experiences, and then make bad decisions at some point in their life, and then they may end up in prison?
Well, I don't know if you know a lot about my background or not, but you're right. I did foster over 50 foster children that have come through my home um, over the years, my husband and I. I also was a school board president, have taught in college classes, have taught in high school classes, so I've been very involved in the education system. I've also had my children in private school. I have homeschooled my children and also had them in public school. But there's so many things that we're going to have to reform when it comes to the public school system. For one thing, Stu and I both feel that our kids are being groomed in public schools. Um, Public
Um,
schools are not meeting the needs of children. Just like when Stu was referring to just talking to prisoners about how they got into the situation that they're in. Our children are being absolutely being targeted and groomed in our public schools. They are being set up for failure. A lot of our class time is spent um, just basically brainwashing them with messages about homosexuality, about transgenders. I mean, all of that stuff that does not belong in a school system. We have kids that are coming out of the school system that literally cannot sign their name, cannot write their name in cursive for a signature. When I was president of the school board at Morgan Local, we continued to be one of the only school districts in Ohio that made cursive writing part of our curriculum. There's just so many things that our children are just being. It's the system is just failing our children.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
reason that I support 100% educational choice is because there is no other profession, no other job that you can have to where you can continually fail, and you just keep getting paid, you keep getting advances, you keep getting raises for a failing product. So under our watch, this will stop in Ohio. This will stop. And if it doesn't stop, parents will have the option to move their children where they feel like they are going to be educated the
Yeah.
best. And that's the thing. When you have true Christian conservatives that are in office, we see things differently. We see things differently. Just like with CPS, I am speaking to at, at least at least 5 to 6 families per week that have been targeted as Christian conservative families by our CPS system. You don't want to have your children vaccinated. You don't want to have your children taught certain ideologies, then we're going to have something over your head that says, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to take your children out of your home. So, there's just so many different things. When I say we're going to bring common sense back to the governor's office, these are the things that I mean. We're under attack. We are under attack, and our children are definitely under attack. So I hope that answered your question. I kind of get off on a tangent when I start talking about public schools and our children, because that is what's closest to my heart.
No, I mean, is that CPS or those examples? Is that in Morgan County, or is that across the state? Those 5 examples that you mentioned, I'm sure it's everywhere, and it's probably worse in certain areas. But you like to think that some of these really conservative rural counties would be a little bit better. But
Absolutely none of the people that I have spoke to have been from Morgan County. They have all been from the larger counties throughout the state of Ohio.
So yeah,
yeah,
Cody, it's one of those. I asked people, I was like, "Do you feel the school system is doing a good job of preparing our youth for real life?" And most people, they look at me and it's like, "No." So I think we're in violent agreement that the school system can do a much better job. So instead of just everyone throwing money at the problem or ignoring it, no one's really thinking about, hey, what's the common sense things that we can do? And part of that is like I feel like 11th and 12th grade, like we're just preparing all of our kids for college. And I was like, look, when you graduate high school, and I asked people, it's like, hey, show me the last 18-year-old recent high school graduate that you felt was ready for real life. Like it's one of those, hey, I'll wait. I mean, I have a 22 and a 27-year-old, and even with my efforts at home, I was like, I asked my 22-year-old, I was like, hey, do you know what an escrow is? I was like, no. I was like, do you know what comprehensive versus, you know, versus the other insurances? No. I was like, do you know the 4 or 5 taxes that are taken out of your paycheck every week? Do you know what that goes for? They're like, no. But algebra 2, calculus, trig, I mean, he could do math with no numbers like nothing. And it's like, wait a second. Like, what are we doing in the public school system? Are we really preparing our kids for real life? Or are we teaching them things that should be taught in the universities?
Absolutely.
I agree. It kind of reminds me of that George Carlin, segment. I don't know if you're fans. His humor is a little bit,
He has a
uses
lot.
a lot of foul language and stuff, but he made some really good points as far as they don't want people smart enough to question things and to critically analyze things. They don't
Absolutely.
want people to have the skills to be self-sufficient. They want to give them just enough that they can take orders and do menial tasks or just be obedient workers. And
Absolutely.
I think that was very insightful by George. I mean, honestly, like you look at the what is going on in public education, and I'll give you an example up here. I know now, Stu, you're over in Dayton, or is that right? That's your home is Dayton area,
That's right.
and then Heather's down in southeastern Ohio, down in Morgan County. Well, here in north central Ohio, Marion County area, Marion City Schools. Okay, so the city of Marion has a population of about 35,000 and some change. And here, about a year ago, one of Marion City School board members did an interview, and he gave the statistics for the 8th grade proficiency within the Marion City School system. Do you want to know what the math proficiency was for Marion City Schools for the 8th grade proficiency? Take a guess, guys.
Probably 20%.
2%.
Oh, I got the 2 right.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Added a 0.
Reading proficiency, according to this board member, 8th grade in Marion City Schools was 5%. I mean, honestly, and when I heard that, I said, you would probably have the same proficiency if you took 100 kids and you threw them in the jungle and had them raised by, a wild panther or something, kind of a Jungle Book type
Yeah,
scenario. They would probably come out, 2 of them would probably be proficient at math, and then you look at the amount of money that we're paying in property taxes to these school districts, 60% of your property taxes. And now they're all implementing these income taxes. It's just getting out of hand, and then the quality is not there. So
Absolutely.
you guys have anything to elaborate on that? I mean, it'll be a nice segue into the property tax question here, but do you want to make any final comments on the public education?
Well, I have one just real quick. So back to the prison ministry. A lot of these kids, so right now we are testing basically your memory skills. If you have good memory, you're gonna do well in school. But the we'll say the third of the population, that they can do practical problem solving very well, but their memory isn't what the rest, what the other 3/4 are, or 2/3, they fall behind. So this is second grade. Like my older brother, he he's a master mason. I mean, with stone mason, just not bricks, but he was a practical problem solver. And so many of these people in prison, same thing. But you don't have to tell a second grader that he's stupid. If he's not picking up with good memory on his math, his reading, everything else, his self-esteem, his self-image goes down the toilet in second grade. It doesn't get any better as he goes through third, fourth, fifth grade. What's that kid doing in junior high? He's getting in trouble. He's looking for validation from a group of people who probably aren't doing the best things. But again, so he's gonna look for validation somewhere because he's not getting it in the school system. I'm not saying we have to build Legos every afternoon in school, but there has to be a way that we can validate and not trash kids' self-esteem that use the other side of their brain. So
Absolutely.
so that's where we can get, and again, that's working with the teachers union, it's working with the curriculum development. I mean, that's not like a magic wand at the governor's office, but that's what I'm saying is like we can think about these problems in a common sense way. Like we know it's broke, how do we fix it? And how can we interject some proposals to where we're not leaving a third of the kids behind just because they don't have a God-given gift of good memory.
Well, and this is another thing also that we believe in 100%. We believe in the trades. We believe in the trades. We think that is a way to offer children the opportunity so that no one falls through the gaps. A lot of kids that do have a problem with memory, like what Stu's speaking about, a lot of kids do have a problem with memory. I was a child that had dyslexia, and that's something I suffer from till this day. But a lot of kids, they need to know that there are other options other than always being sent to a college. There are trades.
Right.
You're looking at Stu, who is, his way of life is through his tree service. My husband was a gunsmith and also a welder, and now he owns Ohio Hunting Lodge. So there's all kinds of trades, there's all kinds of things that we can offer kids that cannot be replaced with AI. There is always going to be different opportunities, different things that build children up, build up their self-esteem, and will help them become productive parts of society. Because a lot of times what's happening with kids when they fall through the cracks and they end up in the prison systems is because they felt like there was nowhere else for them. There was nowhere else for them. They couldn't go to college. They felt like they weren't smart enough, or their family didn't have enough money. So they got brought into a system that is criminal, into a criminal system, and to make money, when we have to show kids that, plumbers, for instance, plumbers are some of the highest paid professions in the United States. They're using their hands. That is something that a child can learn a trade with. Welders. My son is active duty military and will be leaving the military soon, and they're providing him with training to be an underwater welder. There's all of these different things that are out there. And by the way, he had an engineering background. So there's all these different options for kids. So we just need to make sure that is made very clear to children, that they understand that there's other ways of life and there's other things that you can do if you have problems with memory, or if you have problems with math, or in the different areas. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the school system. If I can kind of go into the property tax, if that's okay, Cody.
I love it. That's one of my favorite topics.
Okay, mine too. But one thing I want to let you know, Stu and I are the only candidates for governor that 100% support abolishing property tax for Ohio property owners. VR, he has said right from the get-go, he only wants to look into reforming the system that's been reformed 100 times already. It doesn't work. CP, I spoke to him, Stu, myself, and my husband, we all three spoke to him, and he told us directly that he did not support abolishing property taxes. He would only support reform. So, you know, we're very active in trying to get this passed, not only for our families, but for all families in Ohio. The property tax that's being charged and the way that they're taking away people's homes, it's unconstitutional and it has to come to an end. And I understand as the governor, I will not have the ability to abolish property taxes. But as a voter, as an Ohioan, as a citizen, I have the ability to help this initiative go through. And when I am elected governor, which I believe 100% I will be, there are different things that I can do to help push this along. And I made a post about that recently, but I'll let Stu tell you a little bit more about his views on property tax, if that's okay.
Go right ahead, Stu.
Well, I'm just trying to make my wife happy. Look, we pay $25,000 a year in property taxes. That also means that we're blessed, but you know, some of that's is agricultural property and everything. But you know, the big question is, well, how are we going to pay for the critical services? And that's something that we call the big three. So you got John Plechnik, you got Leonard, and you got Brian Massey. They're kind of heading up the leadership of the abolish property tax movement. We have some different things that we feel could offset the loss in revenue with the property taxes. I don't say can't answer, but they keep saying, well, look, that's an Ohio legislature issue because they're the ones who the budget and they have to figure it out. I don't think that's a great answer for people who have that basic question. But we're so supportive that 3-in-1 Tree Service, my company, we're actually a permanent signature location. So we have people in Greene County coming to us to sign, and we went to several events to even some of the volunteers, some of my network, that we work the booths at different places with the signatures. So we are really all in about it. And the big thing is like, look, to have the property taxes tied to the value of your home and have homeowners support to be shackled with that weight, it's ridiculous. I tell people, it's like, look, if you spend $10,000 to do a home improvement and then they reassess your value, if you stay in your home long enough, you're going to pay more in property taxes for that $10,000 home improvement than what you paid for initially. So it's not about, hey, let's do away with the services. Like, we understand we need to pay for it. Now, we'd be silly, we'd be kidding each other if we think that we couldn't dodge the Ohio budget and come up with a difference. But again, when people are asking about it, it's like when you say that general answer, they push back. And it's like, okay, well, what are you going to dodge? It's like, well, if you think that the Somali daycare center stuff, if you think that's not just the tip of the iceberg, then I think you're being, pretty naive about it.
Absolutely.
And I go back to my federal government days, and I was a contractor for a year afterwards. There wasn't an organization that I've ever been in working with the government, and I was a contracting officer, so I used to write the checks on behalf of the federal government. The amount of red tape that does not need to be there. Because if something goes wrong, you know what we're going to do? Like in the Somali daycare situation, we're going to do an audit. We're going to investigate it. Usually the result of that audit isn't, we're going to fire everybody from the top to the bottom who's responsible and hold people accountable. No. What's probably going to come of that is like, well, we need more people. Well, that fraud happened because we need more auditors. So the government's answer is usually, let's throw more money at it, more people at it, more red tape, instead of holding people accountable. I feel there's easily 20% of the budget that could be dodged in Ohio to pay for the property taxes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing that I tell people all the time, I have a lot of experience with the public school system, being a school board member and a school board president. I was also the secretary for the Black Caucus of Ohio school board members. But this is the thing. We have over 600 school districts for 88 counties in Ohio. When we're talking about Doge, that is one of the top those priorities for Heather Hill, because there is absolutely no reason that we have over 600 districts for 88 counties. That is such a huge amount of waste every
That's
single year.
that's a really good point, and I'm just going to throw a few things out here. You probably are well aware of it, but just for the audience out there, so it really does, I think, need to be fundamentally changed across the board, the whole government finance system, and
Absolutely.
you've got a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse at the state level, and on the income tax side of things, folks, and I've researched this pretty thoroughly. So we didn't have a state income tax in Ohio until 1972. You know what happened the very next year when they implemented the state income tax? The budget for the state of Ohio doubled in
Mm,
1 year. And that was the creation of the welfare state at the state level in Ohio, was after they passed the state income tax. So that's what we're talking about. And it's just gotten worse. It's had 50 years on the growth of big government and things that are funded at the local level, uh, big government initiatives at the local level through property taxes, at the state level through income taxes, the sales tax increases that we've seen across Ohio in that same period of time. We've lived in this age of excessive government, of big government, of this huge welfare state. It's not
absolutely.
sustainable in the slightest. So unless we get a handle on it and say this is over, this big government era that we've had for 50 or 60 years has to come to an end. And on the education side, on the public school system, I don't know what it's like down in Morgan County or down in southeastern Ohio, but I can tell you up here, uh, enrollment in our public schools have declined substantially in the rural parts of north central Ohio.
And it's like that throughout the state.
Yes. And what
Well,
happens, and you know this, both of you know this, but again, for the viewers out there, what happens when you have a substantial decline in enrollment? They're not getting that money that they get, which is what, like 11 or 12,000 per student. They're not getting that. So instead of having a corresponding cut in spending, like you would do if it was a private business, if it was Stu's tree service and he cut down or worked on 30% fewer trees, what are you going to have to do, Stu? You're going to have to cut back your business and your spending and stuff by about 30%.
makes sense.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, so but government doesn't think that way. So what are all these school districts doing? Instead of cutting, they're continuing to grow and expand at the same level that they had been when they had a higher enrollment, and then they're going to the voters and saying, "Oh, we need an income tax." You know, otherwise we're going to have to cut the band program, or they use this argument like all the time. And again, it's not sustainable. We need complete fundamental changes across the board.
Yeah.
Would you
So
agree with
Cody,
that, guys?
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd say on that, because I told people, I was like, look, in Pennsylvania, we don't, I mean, like I talked to my brother because I was like, hey, I know I was just a kid when I was there, but I was like, we didn't vote to increase our own property taxes, did we? He's like, you guys do that in Ohio? I was like, yeah, every election cycle. And I tell people, I was like, look, almost every ballot initiative or every time every election cycle is going to be usually a fire, police, school, maybe a library, ballot initiative come through. And they use the scare tactics to say, you know, there's no busing. We're gonna take away, yeah, like you're saying, the band programs, the sports,
Yep. Sports,
and
choir, all of those.
but see, there's no mediator. There's no independent audit that, because if you came to me and said, look, we really need a new fire station, and we did an independent review, and yes, they need that extra money, or if someone actually audited the school system for real, the whole budget, and said, you know what, they're operating efficiently, which I would fall over from shock, trust me. But if they're operating efficiently and they truly need this levy to pass in order to provide this high class education, but that's not happening. So as the voters, you'll see it in Facebook, you'll see it in different ads. It's like, hey, do they really need the money? If they need the money and they're spending their current budget proficiently and effectively, then yes, I would vote to raise my own property taxes for that. But the thing is, like who knows? Like, does anyone really know if they truly need the extra money traditionally? Now, I think it's going to be overcome by events anyways, because I think this abolish property tax initiative will get on the ballot and it'll pass. But traditionally, I've always said, it's like, well, who's the one that says they need extra money for all these services?
The superintendents. They're the ones that, and one thing that I'm seeing happen, and I've seen this for years, is if they have a year to where they don't need all that they've been given, they will find a way to spend that money so that it is not taken away in the next fiscal calendar. And that is happening all over schools in the United States. So, and one other thing that Stu and I speak about as well is what happened to the lottery money? What happened to the marijuana sales money? And I mean, there's another one, Stu. What was that?
Oh, well, it's sports gambling in general,
Yep,
because
sports
when
gambling.
those initiatives came out, they kept saying, hey, this is going to pay for roads and schools and everything else.
First
And
responders.
you don't, I mean, of course, that was just selling us a bunch of snake oil
Yes,
because
it was.
it sounded good. It's like, well, it's against my morals and ethics, but you know what? It's for the children. It's for
Yep.
the kids. So let's go ahead and pass it on the ballot. And then it gets passed, and then where's the money at, boys?
Yeah, property owners are not seeing any kind of relief. It's a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it really is, and I, all the more reason I think that a legit audit, forensic, if you want to say forensic audit of the finances in the state of Ohio, or just the Doge, is sorely needed. But I
Definitely.
think that people have had enough. They finally woke up. This Axe the Tax initiative, I think, has a lot of support, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on these establishment politicians in Columbus to scramble to try to fix things. Now they're putting some little band-aids and, with a few of the bills that they've passed here recently, but that's not enough. It's not enough, even close to being enough. And you're starting to see the scare tactics. You see the articles in the Columbus Dispatch, and you see these teachers unions and municipal league and all these different entities. That's all part of this big government that lives off of these property taxes and things like that are trying to scare people. But it's totally possible. We've seen a 50% increase from $50 billion to $100 billion. I believe it's in 5 years. Isn't that right, Heather, for the state of Ohio's budget?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it is around that area. Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's unprecedented. And again, I don't know Morgan County, but up here, the increases in property taxes over the past 5 years has been 70, 60, any upper 60s to around 80% increase, depending on what part of the county that you live in. And if you're on a fixed income, I mean, it's bad enough
Absolutely.
for us it's bad enough for us wages People that are trying to, because your employer is not going to give you a huge increase. They're
No.
giving you, if anything, they're giving you what used to be a reasonable cost of living increase of 2 or 3%. So it's not sustainable. It's got to change.
It's definitely not. And this is the thing that when I was the first to announce that I was running back in November of 2024. So when I had a lot of time to actually think about what I stand for, what I want to help with, and property taxes were always at the top of my list because my husband worked at AEP for years before Obama's restrictions shut down his plant. During that time, our family went through a huge financial struggle. And going in there every year and having to dispute your property taxes because they are so out of hand that you're worried about losing your property. But we have so many of the baby boomers right now that are coming in that just they're at risk every year of losing their property. These properties that they have worked their entire lives to take care of and to pay off and to do the upkeep on, now they're losing their homes. And what that is doing, that is taking away our rights to pass on generational wealth to our children. And then we wonder why our children are in the situations that they're in right now. They're in situations because even a lot of them are in situations where even if grandma or mom and dad can pass on the property to the child or the young person, they can't afford the property taxes. They can't afford the upkeep. It's just one thing after the other as a way to keep us down and to keep us in this rat race. So we're going to continue to fight this. We are going to continue to fight this with everything that we have. And just like Stu said, he's making his facility a permanent facility to collect taxes. I mean, to collect signatures to end the property taxes. Sorry. I'm trying to get my dogs out of my room also, so I apologize. But we're going to do everything that we possibly can to abolish property taxes in Ohio because it is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. They should no longer be able to hold over our heads that they can take our property when we can't pay these astronomical property taxes. And that's what's happening.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was like, you think about, like, you're just saying that I'd collect taxes. Like, no, think
Sorry
about
that.
but even think about, like, biblically, I mean, the tax collectors have had a bad name for a long time. I think since, entire civilization. But I mean, it really is theft. And even so, Brian Massey, like, one of the things, like, with the fraud, like, there's some significant pushback because there's a lot of people sucking off the teat of that property tax. And one of them is, I think Brian Massey said in Lake County, just to do the reassessment, it's contracted out at over $1 million just to pay that contractor. 88 counties at $1 million plus. I mean, think about what they have to lose. Like, these companies that come in there and do those audits. You think that they're not going to push back? You don't think they're going to spend $1 million trying to do ads and scare tactics for people not to vote for it? So I mean, there's a lot of money out there, a lot of fraudulent money that the government's been taking out of your pocket and putting in theirs and then giving to these consultants and everybody else. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of waste, and I consider it fraud. I think it's theft from the citizens of Ohio. But
Absolutely.
there's a lot of people, a lot of rich elite people, a lot of companies that are involved in this
That are prospering from this.
merry-go-round that are prospering from it, and they're going to push back, and they are pushing back.
Yeah, and I think another thing, and it's not a popular thing to discuss. So but you have to have these conversations if you're going to be big boys and girls and come up with solutions. You have to be willing to have conversations. You can't say, "Oh, whatever. I love this group or this group," but the public sector unions, you know, they have way too much power and influence in local government and, well, state government too. But it wasn't always that way. And I'll give you another example, just historically, for the city of Marion. You know, in 1937, that's when the Fraternal Order of Police unionized the Marion Police Force. You know what the total number of people employed on the Marion Police Force? I'm saying the whole department. And that was when Marion was about the same population. It was about 3,000 fewer residents. So there's about 35,000 now. In 1937, there were like 32,000. But you know how big the police force was in 1937? And that includes like clerk, whatever, like the total force was 17. You know what it is today? It's 68. So, and everybody wants to say, okay, we back the blue, we love police, all this stuff. And that's true. Everybody wants to be safe. That's one legitimate function of government. But my question, when I found that statistic, when I researched it, I'm like, well, was Marion an absolute den of crime and just wild, wild west back in 1937? No, it had crime, has crime today. Now, culturally, have we changed a lot in this country and in the city of Marion? Yeah, you have. But there was still crime then, and there's crime now. So, are we operating efficiently? That's just my question. When you look at the biggest budget expenditure for any local government, any city, it's going to be police and fire. Those are going to be your top two. And then you're going to have sewer and more infrastructure, stuff like that. But, you know, that's when you started seeing the public sector unions spring up, was the fire department in the city of Marion. Same year. They unionized the same year as the Fraternal Order of Police. And then you had AFSCME and these the rest of the government workers unionized in the city of Marion, I think in like 1969 or something like that. So then you're dealing with collective bargaining and, you know, contracts between the city and this whole group of workers, and they ask for all this stuff. City of Marion spending, I think, every year around $90,000 on quartermaster expenditures for the police department. Why? Every year. For uniforms, you get a fresh, you know, everything. You get your whole wardrobe every year. Is that a good use of public funds, taxpayer funds? I don't know. These
Yeah.
are just questions.
No, I mean, the doging of every organization is a must. And that's where it's like Heather and I, we're non-established. I mean, we're not looking to get famous and wealthy. We just want to simply do what's best for Ohioans and get back to our lives. So there's no mixed incentives here. So if it's the tough calls to like, hey, we're going to make some doging, and yes, we might need to shrink some of these organizations. Well, that's what the people need. That's what we need. And one thing on the property taxes too, I talked to John Plutchnik a little bit about it, but if you save homeowners that property tax bill every year, as a homeowner, how many of you guys have a top 10 list of home improvements and things that you would spend money on? You're just waiting for the available funds. If you gave my wife $25,000 a year back, there's going to be a $24,000 project happening the year after. And
Amen.
so the thing is, I tell people, it's like, look, this is where the MBA comes in a little bit. And then the small business owner, everything else. Look, if she gets a new deck built on the back of the house, we're going to pay $25,000. We'll say she spends the whole thing, $25,000 to that deck construction guy. Guess what? 7% goes to the general fund and sales tax. I mean, plus or minus a 0.25%, depending on your county. But now that deck builder, that construction company, he has to buy the materials. There's another 7% goes back into the sales tax general fund. And then say he buys it from Lowe's. Well, now Lowe's buys that material from the wholesaler, another 7%. So it's not perfectly agreed upon how many times that dollar will flip through the economy, but it's basically a stimulus, a $20 billion stimulus. We'll just say people, they save it, pay off credit cards, whatever. But regardless, the more money you put back in the homeowners' pockets, the more money they're going to spend on their different projects. And we'll have the biggest economic boom in Ohio that anyone has ever seen. And you don't have to come up with 100% of that $20 billion because, again, every time that dollar's spent, it changes hands. There's a sales tax at about 7% that's going back to the general fund. If that dollar flips 5, 6, 7 times, you just times that by 7. We'll just say it flips 6 times. That's 42% going back to the general fund just in sales tax. And then you doge the other 60%, and there's your $20 billion.
Good point. And I think that's the kind of mindset and perspective that people need to have going. It's totally possible. Now you may need to adjust your sales if you switch to a more fair consumption based tax like a sales tax. Yeah, you may need to increase that. But that's the situation that you have in a state like Tennessee, where you have a higher income tax, they have a super low property tax, or they have no income tax, they have a higher sales tax, and they have very low property taxes. So it is doable. It just takes a little bit of work, and you're going to have to cut. You're going to have to cut spending, and
Yep.
these fat cats, they don't want it. They've been feeding off the big government trough and off the teat of the taxpayers, the citizens of the state of Ohio, for years and years. And now we're on to their game, and I think that they're kind of a little bit concerned. Don't you, Heather?
Absolutely. I do. I think that, you know what, we're waking up all over the world, and we're tired. We are tired of, working our butts off and not getting anywhere. And I think that's what's really drove it home for us is looking at our children that are now young adults that cannot make it in this world. For the first time in I can't remember how many years, this is the first generation that will not do better than their parents. And that breaks our hearts as parents. And that's what's waking a lot of us up and saying, you know what, we've done this long enough. We're going to stand up and we're going to fight for what's right. We're going to fight to make sure that Ohio is the best it can be for all Ohioans, especially our children and our grandchildren.
Sounds good. Now, I have to ask this question. I know it's not 100% relevant right now at this very moment, but the whole idea behind it, the big government notion, the tyrannical notion of it is completely relevant, and that's the COVID question. So what was your guys' opinion during that time? And it's made more relevant because you have Dr. Amy Quackton, that is the Democrats' choice, Miss Mask and Miss Government Shutdown and Miss Get Your Jab, or we're going to destroy your ability to take care of yourself. What are your guys' thoughts on that whole mad situation that we went through a couple of years ago? And if you were governor, how would you have handled it?
Well, I can tell you firsthand, COVID almost bankrupt our family. We at one time we owned a barbershop, a tanning salon, ER graphics, Ohio Hunting Lodge, and a small real estate firm, all during COVID. We came out of that with 3 businesses out of the 5. In Ohio Hunting Lodge, because I'm sure you all know just by reading, my husband and I are big time Second Amendment supporters. We are big time hunters. We have guns of every kind, but our Ohio Hunting Lodge has not been the same since COVID. So I mean, it's something that should have never been handled the way that it was handled. Never been handled the way that it was handled. And it is something that it's going to take generations for us to actually recover from everything that was taken away from Ohio during COVID and the way that it was handled. So, Stu, I'll let you jump in there and tell us about how it affected your business.
Gotcha. So I think they gave Ronald Reagan the credit. He said the scariest words you can ever hear is, "Hi, I'm from the government. And I'm here to help." So,
Yeah.
like when the whole
Amen.
COVID thing came down, it's like I've seen enough of the sausage being made behind the curtain that I don't trust a lot of government. I just don't. That's why I think we need ordinary people, non-billionaires, non-career politicians, and non-people who are drinking from that same trough, because we need to have independent thought and people with incentives that are not bought and paid for by corporate sponsorship or from the top of the RNC and saying, hey, this is how you're going to feel about this issue. Like, that's crazy. COVID stuff, I didn't get the shot. I was lucky because as a business owner and I wasn't working for the government. Oh, no, we could distance each other on a tree job pretty easily. Now we'd call the customers because they were afraid. So we'd be like, hey, it's the tree in the front right of the house, right? And then, pay online. But most of my guys did not get the shot because I told them, I was like, look, I don't trust it. I don't trust the government most of the time, if not all the time. I'm an independent thinker. And most of us did not get it. And the more you hear about it, thank goodness we didn't. Um, we last I checked, everyone has the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And when the government tells you, hey, you can't go outside, you can't go to the store, you need to wear a mask, and they're dictating just crazy procedures, and if you don't follow through with it, oh, what's going to happen to you? I mean, heck, you can lose your job. I mean,
You
they
could
want
be
people.
arrested.
Yeah.
At one point, they were threatening us with that.
Yep. And then if you didn't get your kids the shot, well, now everyone's side eyeing
BPS.
you. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. So to say that was overreach and overstep is an understatement. I'm not saying people should have been turned into wind chimes that made those decisions, but it was completely ridiculous to shut down the government. And I remember seeing old your boy DeWine. He was on like some BBC. He's standing there all tall in this picture, and the article was like, oh, here was one of the best governors in the United States, and he was forward reaching. And I just had to clean up throw up all over the floor. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So if you can't tell, I was slightly against that tyrannical nonsense with COVID.
Yes, we both were. But this is another thing also. People just don't understand how big that was for the state of Ohio. Um, and people also don't understand who all was on that COVID task force. That task force was not only Amy Acton and DeWine, it was also Vivek Ramaswamy, and Dave Yost. They were all calling the shots, doing everything that they possibly could to take away our rights and our freedoms to stand up and say, we don't want this vaccination and we don't want to close our businesses.
That was, I think, in the history of mankind, not just this country, that was one of the most just
Deceiving.
craziest. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the movie Idiocracy, so Mike Judge's classic comedy Idiocracy,
Yeah.
that's how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
I felt combined between Idiocracy and like The Matrix. And I just couldn't believe that people thought that wearing these paper chin diapers on their faces were going to like protect them. And that magically, if you took it off when you walked through the aisleway and you got seated at a restaurant, you were fine. Or that COVID couldn't spread at, a place like Walmart or whatever. But if it was owned by a small business owner, by God, COVID, that's a death trap.
Now, Cody, one other question for you. Who else did they, what other organizations, what other form of getting together and worshiping did they close? Our churches. Our churches. You can go
Churches.
to Walmart. You can go to Walmart, but you can't go to church. You can't praise the Lord. You can't worship the Lord. It was all just a big way to deceive us and to get us to do what they wanted us to do.
Yeah. And then DeWine gives off what they were doing, like a lottery, like money and other incentives to, I forget what that, how much was it? It was like millions of dollars that they lottered, raffled off or whatever they do. Uh, if you could verify that you got the jab and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. People thought this was normal, and then people, would completely like unfriend you on social media, and you were
Absolutely.
persona non grata if, like, you said that you were against it or just questioned it at all. You were the worst scum of the earth, and I don't want people to forget that. I think I mean, we've got, like you said, you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who was on that task force by DeWine the Swine, and you have Amy Acton. This needs to be, in my mind, don't forget.
Yep.
Remember what they did to us.
Absolutely. Don't forget.
So, I don't know. That, I think, is still a relevant, hot topic. The other, I would just say, what are your thoughts on Vivek? I know you shared a little bit here, but he just kind of shows up in Ohio and he
You
decides
don't
that
you don't want my opinion.
no, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Lay it,
Oh
lay
no,
it
you
on me.
don't.
Do it.
Oh my. I don't know. What is the politically correct thing to say, Stu? I just say whatever.
You don't
Stu's
like
like my
PC.
voice of
You don't
reason.
like PC. Just lay it on us. Hardcore and raw.
Well, we are completely the opposite on everything from Vivek Ramaswamy. You say something, Stu. Help me out here.
Oh, so it's simple for me. It's like, trust me, I'm a non-politician. When I told my wife that I was thinking about, teaming up with Heather, she said, you'd have to go to Columbus for 4 years. And I was like, I know, or 8. So it's one of those, but here's what it was. What pushed me over the edge was I said, look, the Republican Party is so emboldened. It's almost like a test case. You're talking about idiocracy. It's like, what? You're telling me that the GOP is saying, here's a conservative, mostly Christian constituents. We are going to give you a non-Christian Hindu billionaire as your only option, and we're going to endorse them. Heck, almost 8-9 months before the primary.
A
It's
year
like,
and a half before the primary.
what kind of world are we living in? And one of the things I'd ask people, they're like, "Oh, I'm a huge Ramaswamy fan. He's so smart." Gotcha. I will admit that he is smart. He's a double Ivy League degree. Now I know it was Soros funded, Soros family funded, all this and that. Aside from that, it's like, look, we're supposed to elect people to represent us in Columbus. If you cannot relate to me and I can't relate to you, how in the world am I
Absolutely.
going to make decisions on the behalf of the Ohio people? I said, look, there's 11 billionaires in Ohio. He's one of them. Like the people he hangs out with. I was like, when was the last time you ran into a millionaire or billionaire, and they seemed legitimately concerned about what keeps you up at night? If they don't want your vote, that's the caveat. If they don't want your vote, do they actually seem to care for you? I was like, look, I've been kept up at night with a lot of concerns. I've gotten to the first of the month and I'm like, hey, are we going to pay the mortgage? Are we going to get the payroll? What insurance are we going to pay? The things that's kept me up at night and has kept 99% of the Ohioans up. Ramaswamy has not ever experienced that problem. And how in the world are we going to vote for him to represent us if he knows nothing about us? He's never felt any of our pinch points, our pain points. So I think it's ridiculous that the Republican Party said, you know what, let's throw this guy who is so unrelatable
Yep.
to be our endorsed candidate. So get the
Throw
heck out
all
of
the
here.
assets at him, throw everything at him. Put all of our eggs in one basket.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. I mean, to try to take that choice away from the people and to think that we're not going to question it, that we're not going to say, hey, wait a minute here. Not to say that you still have choice. Don't get me wrong, but that action, because the Republican Party that operates in all 88 of Ohio's counties, like they're supposed to be, their mission should be having the people, the Republican people, select who they want for their candidates. And I don't know, when they endorsed that early before the primary and everything, it was kind of a way to take it away, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It definitely was. And and I spoke to people a lot about that when we were out getting petition signatures for to get on the ballot. I spoke about that a lot because I'm like, do you realize they are trying to take away your right to have a Republican primary?
I'll tell you who would not tolerate that kind of behavior is this guy on the screen,
That's right.
Wayne Elizondo, Mountain Dew Camacho. He would not tolerate this kind of crap from Vivek Ramaswamy.
He won it. Cody, the thing is with I think what a big part of this that played into it was Ramaswamy spent how much time did he spend on President Trump's campaign? I mean, and the millions of dollars. And the thing is, it was like, hey, he's going to be with Elon with the Doge. The Doge. You know what? Ramaswamy was up there to get his picture taken at the
Yep.
inauguration. And how many days did he spend on Doge? Not a freaking one. Not one. You know why? Because again, we already covered it. No one's saying Ramaswamy's stupid. He could see around that corner. He could see that, hey, when we start doging the federal government, there's going to be pushback. Think about how much pushback Elon got. Ramaswamy, he's trying to get back to a presidential run. The last thing he wants to do is get all that negative press from the Doge. So he left before the first hour of Doge was in place because he didn't want negative pushback. It was going to hurt his political career. So then he goes back to Ohio, and I feel President Trump, he was like, you know what? The best way all I can do to thank you and get you out of DC, because he probably don't like him either, is to endorse him. Hey, you go back to Ohio. Thank you for being a good foot soldier on the campaign trail. And in return, I'll scratch your back. I'll give you this endorsement. And once the president of the United States would say practically the head of the GOP at that point, the figurehead of it, once he endorses Ramaswamy that early, what's the central committees across Ohio going to do? Like their hands are tied. So
Yeah.
once President Trump said, "Hey, I'm endorsing," he scratched my back, I'll scratch him. He's part of that entire corrupt swamp and the whole system. So I think that's why they took away the right for a real primary, because President Trump, to scratch Ramaswamy's back, to thank him, endorsed him real early. And how is Ohio Republicans, the established Republicans, how are they going to push back on what President Trump already said about Ramaswamy and endorsing him?
Absolutely. And
Very true.
there are so many things that we just are not the same as VR on. Like for one, I mean, just his overall view of regular middle class Ohioans. He calls our kids stupid and mediocre. He doesn't even understand down to how we handle summer vacations and how important they are to our families. He's trying to put our kids in school year round. It's literally just one thing after the other. But like Stu was saying, for them just to come in and endorse him a year and a half early, and people ask me all the time, how are you not angry with all of the state central committee members and all of this? I'm just not, because I understand what they were up against. I understand that they were up against this, and we all have to work together to fix this, because we cannot We cannot let this go on. We cannot let him get elected. We cannot, we can't do any of this. We have to stand up and we have to fight. And I love the Fight Like Hill because it represents Ohio. It represents Ohio. We do not give up. We're going to fight for everything that we have. We're going to fight for our way of life. We're going to fight for our kids and our grandchildren. And we're going to do everything that we possibly can. Did we lose Stu?
I don't think so.
I think that he's
Oh,
still
okay. There you are.
Hey, 275 pounds of pure lean muscle. You can't lose me.
there. Now, I've got a couple more questions here. We want to be respectful of your time, so we'll try to wrap this up in maybe 10 minutes. But what are your thoughts on Donald Trump as far as this go around, this term in office? Are you supportive? Are you critical? The way I try to tell people is I support Trump when he personifies America first. If he doesn't personify America first, then I don't support him. It's as simple as that. But what are your guys'
Absolutely.
thoughts?
Stuff like they're always out on the water, and they're always in different.
Well,
Same thing with her sister, like I don't know what her boyfriend does, but they're always so.
Background noise from somebody?
I think so. Heather, what are your thoughts on Trump right
well,
now?
you know, here recently I've been having a lot of people that say, you don't support Trump, you never supported Trump, you voted for Kamala and Biden and all this, that, and the other, which is all a bunch of crap. There's absolutely no reason for a Black woman in America to think that they're going to benefit anything at all by saying they support Trump. It has not been an easy road being me and supporting Trump. So when I say that I have supported him, I have supported him. I've worked on 3 of his campaigns, but I do not follow any man blindly except for Jesus Christ. I don't even follow my husband blindly. I don't like the way that he handled the endorsement with VR. I don't like the way that the Epstein files have been handled. But one thing I can tell you right now, President Trump has done what he said he was going to do. When we hired him, he said he was going to do the things that he's doing. And nobody can fault him for that. No one can say that he tricked us or that we didn't get what we voted for, because we did. He is doing everything that he can to clean up our country, to protect our borders, to keep us safe. So, you know, it's kind of in the same situation that you're in, where you say, as long as it's America first, I support him 100%. If it's not, then I won't. And I am strong enough to stand up and say when I support him and when I do not. Nobody is controlling what I believe. Nobody is controlling what I say. When I say something, it's because that's what I believe at that particular time.
I'll tell you what, Cody, it's one of those, yes, I mean, no one's ever going to totally agree with any one person ever. I mean, so he's done a lot of great things. And one of the top things is that as a businessman, I have seen the U.S. get taken advantage of, just bent over that barrel time and time again. Like every trade deal, and it's being sold to us as like, oh, well, this is for some sort of approval, like world approval. Like, who cares about that? America first. And you can actually have good trade deals that benefits both countries instead of just the U.S. always taking it in the pants, you know? And think about what Cleveland looks like today, Toledo, Dayton, all these places that industry is what built those towns. And now with that industry gone, what has happened to those cities and those towns? I mean, it's heartbreaking. So one of the things, and this is where we want to revive industry. It's not about data centers and AI like Ramaswamy wants to do. Here's the thing. A great thing Trump did, he went overseas. And remember, he was going around the European Union. He went to Qatar. He went to UE. He went to Japan. He went all over the world. And he secured, the numbers is different, but about $9 trillion worth of foreign investment, where other countries have said, hey, we are going to invest in the U.S. And most of that is production and manufacturing. So that's a huge win. And the problem is, again, your boy DeWine, we haven't heard a peep out of him of what he's doing to pitch a business case to secure that manufacturing production back in Ohio. Like,
Amen.
why
Amen.
has there not been a business case from our legislature and the governor's office to say, look, we're centrally located in Ohio. From the interstates, we have waterways, we have railways. Like we know how to work. We know how to produce and manufacture. Why we are not trying to attain that foreign investment that Trump went out there and secured, why we're not on the receiving end of that as a state of Ohio is criminal with our leadership. But good on Trump for securing it. But where in the heck is the leadership in Ohio to bring that production manufacturing back to Ohio to get people back to work? Because in sports, I know Super Bowl is coming up. They say winning cures all ills. You know what cures all societal ills? Is putting people to work and having them a good paying job and bring the economy up.
Absolutely.
That's what would cure a lot of ills in Ohio. And shame on Columbus leadership for not bringing that business that Trump secured from overseas back to Ohio.
Very good point.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
The other, I think, somewhat hot topic that kind of crossovers nationally and also here at home in the state of Ohio is the situation in Springfield. So you had our great governor, Mike DeWine, in 2019. He signed a letter saying, open it up. We'll bring in all these Haitian refugees, and they dump them in the city of Springfield in Clark County. So you talk about a Rust Belt city, a formerly great center of manufacturing in the state of Ohio, that's been on down, some hard luck here since the age of big government was implemented, 60 years ago or what have you. And 2020 census for Clark County, 2.2% were foreign born. Now it's a quarter in the city of Springfield. So you talk about demographic change almost overnight. I mean, that's just crazy. Am I wrong, Heather, Stu? I mean, was that not criminal for Biden and DeWine to facilitate that, working in tandem with these crooked employment agencies and real estate developers and NGOs to just say, we're going to dump them here in Springfield and you guys just have to deal with it?
Well,
How would you handle that?
this is one thing that I say to people, because people constantly want me to speak about the Haitians in Springfield, but I say, unless you live in Springfield, you should not have a vote on what happens there. Because I have spoken to probably 200 citizens of Springfield. I have went there. I have spent days there going around, going to their school system, speaking with their commissioners, Larry Barnett, who has been our senior advisor. He lives there. I have spent a lot of time in Springfield. This is what you need to know. People are not going to fight against something if it's in their best interest. So if the citizens of Springfield were getting what Biden and DeWine say that they're getting, we would not be having this discussion. But that's not what's happening. The Haitians in Springfield are bringing in gangs and drugs and all of this violence. It is not a good situation for the people of Springfield. So if you do not live in Springfield, you should not be able to force these people to have to deal with all of this large group of Haitians that could have come into their community. It isn't fair. It isn't right. And this is another example of what I say, bringing common sense back to the governor's office. Because did you notice DeWine did not bring them to Bexley? He didn't bring them.
No.
He didn't put them in his backyard. He put them in Springfield and said, "You all deal with them."
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
then when Trump,
yeah.
Trump tries to ends the temporary protective status, and then some DC radical leftist judge, blocks that for at least the time being. It's that didn't get enough attention. You talk about mainstream media, liberal bias in media. That should have been everywhere in a just world, because it could happen. It could happen anywhere. We talk about declines in birth rates in much of rural Ohio. So what city's next? They're going to say, okay, Mansfield, your population's declined 30,000 or 20,000 over the past 50 years from your peak in 1970. So we're going to dump in a bunch of Afghanis, culturally enrich you. And there's nothing you could do about it. Like, that's scary. Just that amount of
It is
demographic
scary.
change in a short period of time. Like, it's not natural. It's forced. Stu, what are your thoughts?
Well, Cody, follow the money. I mean, follow the dollar. I mean, I think that's the core incentive for so many of these career politicians. And the thing is, they spend so much of their life trying to get to whatever position they're at now, and they may have another trajectory that, like, DeWine, he spent the last 20 years trying to get to his position. He's not going to rock the boat. And once he gets there, just like a lot of career politicians, I mean, all they're doing, they're just preserving their job. They're preserving their position. They don't want to be the one that shakes the boat up and fundamentally transforms the government to actually to work for the people and do common sense stuff for the citizens. Again, I mean, they've been part of that system for so long, and of course it's criminal. Yeah, let's dump tens of thousands of people in Springfield. That's only 30 minutes north of me in Dayton. And again, I'm around blue collar guys, I mean, blue collar friends. And to hear what that did to that community yeah, I know I keep saying criminal, but it's criminal. And again, and when something doesn't make sense, I always go back to, again, I don't trust politicians. I don't trust the government for the most part. But it's follow the dollar. It's like when nothing else makes sense, pull that curtain back and follow the dollar.
Yeah, exactly. And I encourage everybody. It takes a little bit of research on that particular issue, but you can look at their former mayor in the city of Springfield. There's a church group that was heavily involved in that. A particular guy that ran a lot of the employment agency between once they would bring him in and supply, like, I think Dole and some of these other factories in the area to undercut costs. So, you have a lot of these, big companies. Well, it's money. So they want that. And then
Yeah.
you got the people that own the real estate, and then they're jamming in, in what might be a sufficient for, like, two people or something. They're packing them in like sardines, like, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in this small little apartment and stuff, and then they're getting a cut of that. And it's just complete, just stinks to high heaven across the board. But and Robert, do you have any questions? I apologize, we were just kind of chatting
I'm
here.
good.
And do you have any questions before we end the show tonight, Robert?
No, I just want to thank them for coming on and appreciate their time today.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, Jay, do you have any questions on your end here, buddy?
I mean, the politics isn't really my strong suit, but I will say you guys got my attention with the Doge thing, and I'm an IT, a systems administrator by trade. I've been doing it my whole life, and I met Mr. Landon when he was running for auditor, and we uncovered a whole lot of really bad financial stuff that we ultimately theorized was due to IT failures, and we've been proven right. So this is over the period of many years since what, Robert, 2018 late, we started looking at it. And we'd always suspected it, but now we have the receipts to prove it. And I started branching out my research. And Doge has proven one thing to me as a systems administrator, that all these internal audits and things that were being done prior to their revelations at the federal level weren't complete because they were missing a big picture, and that's the technology. There's easy ways to hide these things in IT systems, and if you have the access, or as you say, you follow the money, and they have enough money and big enough pockets to do whatever they need to do to make sure that this stuff is hidden or stays hidden, or whatever needs to be disabled is disabled. That's a pretty huge problem, and we're seeing pockets of not identical things, but very similar things that what we're seeing in DC and Marion specifically. So that's very interesting to hear you guys talk about that.
Thank you, Jay.
You, Heather, would you like a final comment, and then we'll give Stu a final comment?
Well, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to allow us on your program and allowing people to hear our voice and know what we truly believe. You've asked some great questions, and I really appreciate that. I just want to encourage everyone to look us up. Get to know your candidates. Don't be deceived. There's a lot of information out there. The government is trying really hard to point you in a certain direction because they want to continue to have control. We need to take our control back. Hill and Moats, we are the real deal. We are the people's candidates, and we're going to fight every day to do what's right for not only our children and grandchildren, but the Ohio that we know and love. So please go to my website. It's fightlikehill.com. Read about us. If you feel like you would like to volunteer or donate to our campaign, you're welcome to do that on there as well. We are the only candidates for governor that give out our private cell phone numbers. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. My phone number is 740-624-0162. And again, that's fightlikehill.com for Heather Hill for Ohio governor and Stuart Moats for lieutenant governor.
Excellent. Stu, final comment.
Yep. So my phone number is on there too, and I have to ask all the really chunky men to stop sending me nudies. So
Oh my.
It happens. It happens. Yeah.
you know what? I should have known. I should have known what was going to happen when I put my cell phone number out there for all of Ohio to have. But no, I mean, it comes down to, like, look, we're not politicians. We're just average people, and we have a selfless heart. I mean, it goes from the military to the prison ministry, being active in church. It's like, look, and I go to every. I'm going to Nashville tomorrow, and we were already there. We're helping those people out. Are we getting paid? Yes, but some of it we just do because these people, they're in a tough spot. So that's our heart. Look, we want to serve the people. Politicians should not try to get into elected position to gain in some way. Like, it should actually be a sacrifice. It should be a sacrifice to go away from whatever your career is to go serve the people. The people. You're not serving yourself. Serve the people. It should be a sacrifice. And you know what? When you're done serving the people, get your butt out of the political sphere and get back and just to whatever you were doing before. Look, my passion is my farm, my cattle, our horses, the rescue, the tree service. It's like, I take a lot of pride in being able to look my employees in the eyes, and they're getting well paid, and they can take care of their families. And the senior leadership, so the governor's office in Ohio, every bill that comes across that desk should have one question. It's not, oh, what constituents, I mean, not constituents, but what big donors, how do they want me to either sign or veto this bill? It shouldn't be one question. Is this in the best interest of Ohioans? That's it. One freaking question. Is this bill in the best interest of Ohio? That's it. No outside noise, no static. Oh, who funded the campaign? Or like I said, how's big corporate donors going to feel if I veto or I sign this bill? So again, Heather and I, we're just normal people. We want to be there. We want to serve the people and get the heck back to our regular lives and keep it going. Because I ask people, like, look, who was the governor 25 years ago? no one knows. I'm going to say no one. Most people don't know. You forget them. It's a cool position. You can do a lot of good, but you know what? 25 years from now, very few people are going to know who was elected governor this year. So it puts it in perspective. This isn't a money grab or trying to get fame. It's not. Let's serve the people and let's get the heck back out, because
That's right.
grand scheme of things, people aren't going to know who we were 25 years from now. So let's do some good and let's get out.
And we're not trying to be career politicians. That's right.
Yeah, we don't need those. We don't need any more career politicians.
No, we don't.
Heather Hill, Stu Moats, fightlikehill.com. I like that. It's got a good ring to it there. So
Thank
check
you.
them out. Go to the website. Check out their Facebook page, and where else are you going to have the opportunity to call them on their cell phones and to send a potential lieutenant governor a picture of your bare belly? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend doing that, but whatever. You want to do it, go ahead and do it. But anyway, we thank you for joining us on the Watchmen's Report. We wish you the very best of luck on the campaign trail. The primary for now, that's one quick question here. So are you going to be on the Republican primary, or are you running as an independent at this point?
Nope, we're absolutely going to be on the Republican primary in May. We submitted all of our signatures and all of that yesterday, Stu. Is that right? Or the day before?
Yep, 2 days ago.
2 days ago. So yep, we're gonna be on there.
All right, May 5th, folks. May 5th, the Republican primary. You will have this pair here on your ballot in the state of Ohio. So again, Heather, Stu, we wish you the very best of luck. Thank you so much for coming on the Watchmen's Report. Hopefully, you'll agree to come on again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, until next time, for Robert Landon, Jason Foreman, Stuart Moats, Heather Hill, I'm Cody Higley, and this has been the Watchman's Report. And remember, folks, a watchman is always vigilant. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Sound the alarm! To arms! They are here!